doubt. Big-time three from Fournier. And we got a little scuffle underneath. Julius Randle. Push. Cameron Johnson. Jerry.
I don't think the game's over.
Welcome into Triple Zeros, the anti-hot take sports show. I'm your host, Josh Buckhall. Follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com. Email address is clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, you can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at 3zerospod. That's the number 3 zeros and pod. And, of course, you know we are always also available wherever you get your podcast. And you can always check the video out on YouTube. That being said, I'm going to need you to go ahead, like, subscribe, and share, rate, and review. All those good things to help the podcast grow and reach more people. That little clip that you heard there wasn't one voice, it was multiple voices, an instance really of Friday night's Phoenix Suns New York Knicks battle, a game which the Knicks led most of the contest and only to falter at the very end on a last minute bank shot by Cam Johnson. And to be honest with you, it was reminiscent of another situation, and we'll get to that in a second. So I guess we should probably stop beating around the bush. Like I said, the Knicks and the Suns faced off last night. The Knicks led the game most of the time, but then they ended up falling off late at the end of the game, falling to the Suns ultimately, as I pull up the final stats here. 115 to 114 on the last second bank shot by Cam Johnson, as I said. But that clip, the Randle clip, and I guess we should probably play so you can hear the full audio of it, of the exchange. And for those watching the stream, you could see, or watching the video, you could actually see what happened between the two teams as the game was in its late stages, but I still early enough for it to be competitive to where I'm not sure exactly why. I'm not even sure exactly why this entire exchange occurred. Even watching it, I'm not sure what was taken umbrage with, but, you know, to be honest, I'll talk about why I'm not so sure that this is off-brand or something that should just be glossed over, and we'll get to that in a second. So here's the clip, and here's what exactly happened between Julius Randle and Cam Johnson. Last night's 115-114 victory for the Phoenix Suns over the New York Knicks.
For the first two that you wanted to see all the time.
No doubt. Big-time three from Fournier. And we got a little scuffle underneath. Julius Randle. Push. Cameron Johnson. Jerry. And coaches holding back players from the respective benches.
But if you're Julius Randle here, you got to be careful. That extra bit, is that going to be something that gets you ejected from this game? Your team is up by 10. You are the leader.
I was following the action going back down court after the bucket. Heard the whistle blow, looked back to see Randle push Johnson. Playing with a lot of intensity. Let's take another look here. They were banging each other. It looked like
there was nothing there. That was just good, hard, physical basketball. And even
that's just a push.
Yeah, but even then,
that's Saturday afternoon at the YMCA.
Yeah, we've seen more. But if you're a player, Julius Randle's been dropping his shoulder every single play. He is a bull. That is what you know you are going to get if you're playing against Julius Randle. But on the flip side of that, Julius, if people are trying to be physical back with you, you can't retaliate and get frustrated like, hey, this is what I do. You don't do this back to me.
So there you saw the exchange, and you heard Richard Jefferson talking about how there's not much there in the clip. Listen, all I saw, all that happened was Johnson bumped him. He bumped him from the backside with his forearms, and Randle, I guess, took umbrage with that and squared up and then pushed him. And here's the thing about it: this is not the first time we've seen Julius Randle overreact. We saw him overreact to the assistant coach trying to show him where he was messing up. Like, this is kind of not a pattern, but this is definitely not a one-off instance, and it shows the level of frustration. Now, the problem here is they were up 10, as you heard the announcer say. Wow. They were up 10, lose by 1 point on the last second shot by the guy that you ended up getting into a fight with. That's not a good look. A lot has been made about Julius Randle's season this year, and he's down across the board in how he's performed. The whole team has. They've been really bad. The Knicks have lost, what is it now? as I looked them up there, lost the last 7 in a row, right? They haven't been good since they made that trade at the deadline for Cam Reddish. That hasn't worked out. My man is not seeing nearly as much time as he thought he would. I don't know what that whole deal was for their side. I get what the Hawks are doing in that whole thing. Not sure what the Knicks are trying to accomplish. So losing 7 in a row now after that one to the Suns. Again, top team. I was all ready to talk about how the Suns lose Chris Paul and they start dropping games against lesser than foes. And the Knicks show you why they are what they are. And it's funny because people talk about the Tom Thibodeau tenure wearing out and how he's run his course already. But a lot of it has to do with how they've got guys, I guess, in miscast roles. Randle, for all of his talent, and for whatever he thinks he is, surely he thinks he is a number one go-to option, but he's probably better off in his secondary role. They for sure haven't been the same without Derrick Rose on the floor. But that reaction is indicative of a frustrated player. It's not just that moment. It can't just be that. Just as it couldn't have just been the assistant trying to tell you something. It's on the whole. And who knows? Whenever contracts end for players or coaches, situations change. You always hear some kind of fallout. So I can't wait to hear what comes out of this one when all things are said and done. But this is a Knicks team that was in the playoffs last year and are out this year just as fast as they got in. Bing bong. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but, like I said, Rose's injury, Thibs is a grinding personality. He's a one-way one-way to do it kind of person. We got word that he didn't want Cam Reddish when the trade went down. So here we are. Here we are. They're now clinging to playoff hopes with, less than 20 games left? Good luck. Good luck, because I mean it was a magical ride last year, and there was zero progression except for from RJ Barrett. He's been the one bright spot this season for them. It's tough. Like I said, this is a team that had high aspirations and had done a lot of good things last season, only to see them fall by the wayside this year. That's tough, man. That's tough. It does, though, lead us to talk about, like I said, Derrick Rose and how he's been out. Now, there's been a lot made over Ja Morant's spectacular season that he's having. 27 points, 6-5, 6-4. I think it's 6-4, something like that. But it's 27 points, and he's over his last 3 games. He's averaging 45 points, right? 5 boards, 4 assists, shooting 57% from the field, 67% from 3. Or I'm sorry, 55% from 3. 57 from the floor, 55 from 3. He's lighting it up. Last 3 games was 51-48 or 51-42 and 38. Like he's dropping, he's killing, right? He's killing. But the Derrick Rose year was 25 points, 5-5, something around in that somewhere thereabouts. 60-win team in Eastern Conference Finals. You got a little ways to go. As much as I love what Morant is doing, let's see it in the in the postseason. He's much better than Derrick Rose has ever been. Excuse me? He averaged 25 points, and they've added scoring to the NBA, right? They've facilitated more scoring in the NBA since that time. You could say that he's a better player because he's still healthy and has his health to heaven. Hopefully he keeps that. People have talked about how he lands and how that's the kind of stuff that leads to injuries. Knock on wood for that. Anytime somebody says something like that, that's always like, oh, I don't want to bring that up. Ooh. But you hold that he keeps his health. 25 points to 27 in that amount of time. I mean, and I don't want to get into roster construction because I'm not sure that you might say that this Grizzlies roster is deeper than that Bulls roster. But I don't know if you would say that it's overall better because of the talent at the top of that Bulls roster. The Luol Dengs, the Joakim Noahs. Those guys are talent, really, really good players. But Keith Bogans was Derrick Rose's 2-guard. They tried to get Rip Hamilton at the end of his career. It just wasn't. And Jimmy Butler wasn't the Jimmy Butler that we saw, and we know how that all turned out anyway. You just imagine if they'd have kept those two together. Anyway, I'm going down to the side. My point is, the Ja versus Rose comparisons are, in my opinion, inaccurate, but they're definitely unnecessary. One thing we got to stop doing is using it using the accomplishment of play, and I'm guilty of this myself, using the accomplishment of one player to diminish that of another. It's okay to appreciate them both separately, equally, differently, but to go about it in a way, especially knowing how Rose's career turned out, that is the wildest part to me. Like, you people act like those things just didn't happen. Even when you want to stress he only had the one good year, you want to act like that wasn't as great as it was, and then what happened to him didn't happen. That's odd. That's all odd. So that's when I often feel like there's agendas, and that's why I say even when I have personal experience, I got to watch myself because I've been guilty of doing it. So just keep in mind, next time you talk about it, somebody tries to bring up Ja being better than me, like, chill out. Let's just chill out. You don't even got to disagree or agree. Just chill out because like it's not necessary. You don't need it. Ja's having a great year, regular season. We'll see what happens going forward. Good luck to him. That was my dark horse team in the play. If you go back and check it, that was my dark horse playoff team. They're far exceeding my expectations right now, obviously. But that was not. It's not a surprise if they're as the third seed, 43-21. But they're actually only a half game back of Golden State for the 2 seed, actually. But again, not a surprise because I think that highly of Ja. I thought that highly of their team, and they've been doing a lot without Dillon Brooks this season. But that doesn't. To me, that's an unfair comparison to Ja Morant, an inaccurate comparison, or an inaccurate statement if you take that side because it's still to be proven. And then it's definitely wholly unnecessary. You just don't have to do it. We don't have to do that kind of comparison. If you want to use it to say, man, he's doing good. Look at what he's on pace on this kind of pace. But then you use it to tear down that's wild. That's just wild and weird. So I don't know. The Atlanta Hawks, on literally one night after beating the Chicago Bulls, struggled to beat the Washington Wizards. They got John Collins back. He came off the bench, played a really good. They gave 9 points and like 6 or 7 boards, 24 minutes, but they won barely by 1 point because they couldn't put the Wizards away. And it's that kind of inconsistency that's going to get you beat. You get up for the big team because that game against the Bulls, I tried to tell everybody, listen. Or I'm sorry, but they won by 3 points, 117-114. I tried to tell everybody, listen, the Hawks are one of the best offenses. It's that defense. When they play better, and if you look, there's a graphic that came out from NBA Math, and I'm going to have to write something on one of these sites. One of the mini outlets, again, follow me on mini outlets, soaring down south. Payment ain't easy when I get back to that because that's been kind of lackadaisical too. Last word on pro football, and of course, there's also Clocker Sports. But as I was saying, they're one of the better offenses. Their defense has been lacking, but they ran up against a team in the Bulls who have had a worse defense since they've lost 2 key components. And so I wasn't ready to freak out. I was upset, but not like it's disappointing because you want to see the Bulls be more. I want to see the Bulls be more consistent in that regard. The Hawks, I know what their talent is, and that's what they're frustrated. It's the same thing. It's kind of a Spider-Man meme. It's just that one team started hot, and it might appear like it seems to be one team is going to try to get hot down the stretch. That ends up being the better way to go about it. We'll see how it ultimately plays out. But in this game, Trae Young struggled to score 27-something% from the floor. He ended up with 25 points. And as he struggled, the rest of the team struggled. Now, they still ended up, again, getting the win. But this is a Washington team that's 28-34. They don't have Bradley Beal. And quite frankly, they haven't been great in their last few. I think this was their 3rd loss in a row now. They came in on a 2-game losing streak. Oh, no, they came on a 2-game winning streak. Excuse me. That's right. They broke up the 2-game. Like, they're still 6 games below 500. Now, with the loss. Hawks have some things to tighten up. Getting Collins back helps. He'll be better, obviously, as he goes forward. He said he came out no worse for the wear. They did, however, see Kevin Huerter leave out with a shoulder injury. No word yet on what that's, ultimately going to be. Hopefully nothing too serious. But they got to tighten some things up, man. They have the talent. They got to play consistently. They have to play more consistently. As for the Chicago Bulls, they've lost their 4th straight after losing to the Milwaukee Bucks on Friday. Derrick Jones Jr. had a tremendous dunk on Giannis Antetokounmpo's head. Go ahead and check out the Twitter feed again at Josh G. Buck to see that. But they lost their 4th straight. And here's the thing about this one. Because a lot of people will tell you, oh, there go the Bulls again, dropping them games, against the top teams. But when you go back and look, and I'm not saying those other teams weren't missing guys either. What I'm saying is the Bulls are in the stages of a rebuild, and this is the second year, but the first full year of a rebuild, and they are still very reliant on the core, right? When you build a team, you build your core, you find out who you're going to keep. That's the rebuild. Let's talk about that. When you do a rebuild, you come in and find out who you're going to keep. You keep those guys. Put some new pieces around and see how that works. You're building your core up. Once you build your core, then you start putting in the pieces around it to fill out the rest of the roster. The Bulls are getting by with Javonte Green and Ayo Dosunmu, a second-round rookie, playing way above his head. And as you've seen in the past couple of games, late in those contests, he seems to have worn down a bit as he's been run through screen after screen after screen and tasked with guarding top offensive weapons. That's what's going to happen. I'm not saying that Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso are going to be the cure-all, but damn it if they're not going to help a lot. This is a team that relies on them to not only set the tone for their defense because they're feisty with their hands, they communicate well, they switch a lot, they can cover multiple positions, right? Even when they get switched on bigs, they pester them. But these are also their point guards. So those moments where you see the Bulls' offense lag, you wouldn't see that with Caruso and Ball out there to help keep things moving, to help get Vooch the ball where he likes it down in the post, to help get DeMar the ball so that he doesn't have to dribble into his spots, right? And then have 4 guys waiting for him when he gets there. These are the things that are impacted by the loss of these 2 players that nobody wants to acknowledge. They want to say it's an excuse. And okay, all right, let it be an excuse. It's the facts too. I guess 2 things can be true at the same time in this regard as well, because it's a clear delineation between them losing those 2 guys and the fall off in their defense, right? And the lack of competitiveness that they've had in a lot of these games, and then even the game against the Bucks is what just sold me on the overall thought that okay, well they're just missing their guys. It is what it is, man. Hopefully they can settle in somewhere in 4 or 5 and not in the 6-7 range when it's all said and done by the time they get him back. But that's what it is. And I'm until I see them get back and prove me otherwise, I'm riding with that until it's over, because I've seen them be really, really good with those guys. I've seen all these things these issues that we're seeing not be issues when those 2 are there. You lose both of your point guards. This looks like the team from last year, because that team didn't have a point guard. Same position. The 76ers have won 5 games in a row, 4 with James Harden in the lineup. Harden over those games is averaging 28.7 points, 12 assists, and 7.5 boards. He's shooting 59% from the floor and 50% from 3. Listen, I try to tell people that in the playoffs especially, but when you have 2 dominant isolation players, and I mean dominant isolation players, these aren't guys that, Harden's only issue is that he's worn down a lot of times. You can say he didn't do well in Brooklyn. He clearly didn't want to be in Brooklyn. We could talk about the validity or the stand-up nature of that another day. I don't care. I'm talking about the 76ers ceiling right now. And with those 2, Harden and Joel Embiid, who's in the MVP conversation. Harden was at one point this season too, or last season. I don't think he did this season. Anyway, with those 2 in tow, the 76ers are going to be tough to beat. And if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, yes, you were missing Pat Connaughton and Brook Lopez against the Bulls. But as I just told you, the Bulls are missing 2 top guards, and I'm not sure that Connaughton and Lopez are outweighing what Ball and Caruso bring to the Bulls. And now, if you're not beating the Bulls, I'm saying you're not going to beat a healthy 76ers team who looks to be the cream of the crop right now in the East, right alongside the Miami Heat, who are getting by with the Jimmy Butler, who's shooting in the teens from 3. In the teens. Hasn't done that since his rookie season. And they're still one of the top teams in the league. It's incredible. And that just goes to show you that's a team that's gotten their core, added some pieces, fine-tuned it, added some more fringe pieces. Same thing with Philadelphia. They're fine-tuning their roster. They've been playing without Ben Simmons all year. Now you add, and they were still dominant. Now you add James Harden to that. It's a scary notion for most teams in the East. It's got to be exciting for 76ers fans, and honestly, it's quite going to be quite interesting to watch in the postseason. I'm looking forward to it a lot. The Los Angeles Lakers have lost. Are you ready for this? I don't think you're ready for this. These are the 2020 NBA champions, right? Have now lost 4 games straight. They are the 9th seed, 27-35. 2-10 over their last in the division. They are 2-8 in their last 10 games. They are playing without Anthony Davis. That's part of the problem, though. Like, that's part of the issue that was the issue coming in. He's been injury prone in his career. Russell Westbrook has been a failed experiment. Could have told you that coming into the year. Russell Westbrook, as a Russell Westbrook fan, I could have told you that wasn't going to work. Especially when you want him to play like a point guard. He's kind of shown that his wheelhouse is scorer and X factor kind of guy, right? He could play a mini center for you, but you don't want him to be your point guard. You don't want him to have to shoot a lot. And, well, the Lakers are desperate for shooting, and it just hasn't worked well. Hasn't been a good marriage. They're bottoming out faster than I think even the most skeptic of people would have thought because of how little they've gotten from Anthony Davis. But the conversation has still been driven about how they're wasting LeBron James's good years. And that's true. But only if by they, you mean him too. And when you hear the talk about him going to possibly play with his son back in Cleveland as Darius Garland goes bananas in the last game, you understand that there might be more to it than just lip service. Now, Rich Paul and Lakers management ownership met up and reportedly agreed, discussed about LeBron wants to be there. He's not going nowhere. He's committed. We've heard that before. I'm not even gonna say I would respect it. You want to go play with your shorty for a couple years or a season or two before you retire? That would be cool. But this Lakers team bottoming out was such a, and the Cavaliers lost 119 to 125 versus the Sixers, by the way. Just to show you how crazy the East is right now. This team bottoming out is now talking about trading LeBron James. They should be proactive. You have pundits talk about they should be proactive and move him before he decides to move on from them. If that doesn't happen, you don't force that. I don't think you force that issue. As much as I understand the logic behind not wanting to get caught holding the bag, you let him leave and do that to his own legacy, whatever it does to it. And you stand there and be like, hey, man, we let LeBron, we'll rebuild another contender. He leaves. Him leaving is not a death kiss. It's just not. Not anymore, anyway. It was thought to be, but we've seen Cleveland rebuild without him, which probably should make them a little skeptical about re-adding him and what it would take to get him from Los Angeles. But at the same time, I think most teams would welcome the trade, would try to bring him on. But the notion the Lakers should move on ahead of time, I don't see that. Unless he requests it publicly, I don't see that being a thing. I just don't understand that being a thing. So, switching gears. The Dallas Cowboys could cut wide receiver Amari Cooper, try to recoup some of that $100+ million or whatever they gave him just a season or two ago. Their rumors are they have a ton of players to re-up with this offseason, but the number one option is Michael Gallup. He missed a handful of games last year, has a not a great drop rate, but he is younger. And for as much as I like Cooper, I could see an argument for him not being a quote-unquote difference maker. He makes few solid plays. He's more steady than spectacular. Let me put it that way. Steady more than spectacular. And Gallup as a deep threat will give you the boom. He takes the lead off of teams. He just does. And that, again, plays into some of his low catch rate, rather. Still, steadiness like Cooper is hard to find. And all this really does is hinder your offense, because as deep as that receiver core might be, there aren't many Amari Coopers in the league, let alone on that team. And he caught over 100 passes. He was upset about his targets. He could probably see the writing on the wall. They have CeeDee Lamb there as well, and that's probably a bigger factor in this than Michael Gallup. That CeeDee Lamb is ultimately going to be that number one option. So it's proactive. This is probably in line with the LeBron thing in the sense that they are just going to be proactive before it becomes an untenable contract and situation, and moving while he has a lot of value around the league. But cutting him cutting him seems so misguided. Maybe there aren't many teams that want to, offer something for him, pay a lot, pay all that kind, but somebody will. And I just can't imagine that would be the way they decide to go for it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. As I told you, we have the Russ, Kyler, and Aaron quarterback conversation will dominate a lot of the offseason discourse. And Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Aaron Rodgers all have updates. Russell Wilson reportedly had been sought after by the Washington Commanders. We got a new name now. Washington Commanders. But they were rebuffed. And listen, God bless Pete Carroll up in Seattle, man. He wants to keep the band together, and he just knows that when you move Russ, that is the ultimate signal that the rebuild is happening, and it probably means that it's about time for Pete to go ahead and shove off. But you're not being silly. You're not rebuilding around Russ. You're not. It's not working. He said he wants to be on the West Coast anyway, so maybe he didn't want to go there. Maybe that's why that played a part in it. But man, it's gonna be interesting to see how many more offers they can hold off, as I just don't see any path to real improvement for the Seattle Seahawks right now. That's just the way it goes. Kyler Murray, ownership came out and said they want him to stay there. He said he wants to be there, and they're all hugging and kumbaya right now. We'll see how that ultimately turns out, because they had their little public spit spat, but they built the monster that was turning on them, and that you got to work through that. That just happens. Much made out of little, in my opinion, because I figured they would get something done, because it just didn't seem like it was that dire. But this is a Cardinals organization that gave up on Josh Rosen a year later for Kyler Murray, which again played a part in all of this. So that situation seems to be going better. Seattle's delusional, and then you have Aaron Rodgers, who is supposedly going to inform the team by Tuesday what he wants to do with his future, if he wants to stay, if he wants to go. They're ready to pull the Band-Aid off by reports. They're also had good talks about staying together and have worked on a short-term deal that would make him the highest paid player in the NFL for that short time. Basically, no one knows nothing about Aaron. Russ and them are delusional. Kyle and them working on it, and Aaron and them don't. It's complicated. Okay, that's just what's happening right now. There are reports that he is interested in heading out to Denver with Nathaniel Hackett, but the best situation is probably there in Green Bay. We'll see what ultimately happens, because again, this is another team that is they're good though. Unlike Seattle, Green Bay is good, but I'm not sure they can get it much better unless you can see step ups from obviously some of the rookies that they had last year, but and the defense can stay healthier. Maybe that does make the difference, but there's not. It's been unclear, because apparently Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what he wants to do. So that's why it's hard to get a read on that whole situation. The New York Giants are reportedly making Saquon Barkley available in the right deal. They are holding on to Daniel Jones. I agree. Not sure you're going to get much for Saquon Barkley, but I totally understand. I believe in his talent. I'm not sure that he is as good of a runner as we thought he would be. He's a really good weapon, really good pass catcher out of the backfield. Good blocker, but I'm not sure that I would call him the greatest right now. He's also played behind crap O-lines. So if I'm a GM and I can get him for somewhat of a song, I'm definitely going to head and float that pick out there and let me get one of the top rated backs coming out of college. Now, he's also been injury prone, which is what I'm going to try to knock down the asking price for, because you don't know how long you're going to have him, and you don't know how much you can actually use him. So, and you don't know how effective he's going to be after all the injuries that he's gone through. So, all that though, I guess the Giants are trying to revamp a team as they make as Brian Daboll tries to shape Daniel Jones into his version of Josh Allen with the Giants. So, good luck for that one. The Patriots are set to let cornerback J.C. Jackson test the free agency market. The highly sought-after cornerback is only 25 years old. At 5'10", he plays bigger than his size and has been one of the better cover corners in the league in the past couple of seasons. And so he's going to fetch a high price. But this is what the Patriots do. And anytime they're willing to let somebody just go ahead and test the market, be wary. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. I'm not going to act like I watched J.C. Jackson religiously this past season. I'm just going to tell you, if Belichick is going to let him walk, just pay attention. And you could even say, well, he let Tom Brady go. I'm going to put it to you like this, though. The Buccaneers won that Super Bowl, and now they got to find another quarterback. They're right back where they were beforehand. It's a short blip for a big fall off because nobody that steps into that role is going to do what Brady was doing. Just not going to happen. It's just not. You saw what Jameis did, and they were a bottom feeder because he couldn't control the ball. Nobody's going to control the game like Tom does. So Belichick is moving on a year late or a year ahead of time. He's willing to take that hit. Maybe as we've seen plenty of players in their prime leave and not do as well. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Also interesting is the new Miami Dolphins head coach, Mike McDaniels, formerly the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, in his appearance on Pat McAfee's show, talking about Tua Tagovailoa. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure how to categorize this just yet before I let you hear it, because I don't want to give a game away and tell you exactly what it was that I was thinking as I was watching this. So here's the clip that I saw, and let's just let that ride.
What are you going to do to change and make Tua better? If you got into that, this is very early in the whole process, and you're shaking hands, kissing babies right now, and you're a 0-win head coach that everybody loves.
0 wins.
0 win. But what are you thinking about that for Tua? How do you make him better?
We're going to start with scoring more points than the opponent.
Wow!
Holy shit.
Oh, no.
You are changing the game.
Changing the game through math.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I think I was just so fortunate in my career to be around the process of how I look at things with the empowerment of the right teachers, that I look backwards, forwards, okay? What things do I see that are really awesome about his game on tape, even though we're at...
Hey, he's accurate as hey.
Boom! That's what I was just about to say.
Oh, I didn't know. I was just you were leading me. That's how you should do this. Maybe think about it in the future.
Dude.
But he's so accurate.
Or we should just spend the time finishing each other's
sentences.
Okay.
Hey, have we known each other for
our whole lives?
Oh my God.
You tell
Me?
Wow.
This is weird.
Dude.
Whoa,
Seems like you guys just became.
Dude.
wow, this is fucking weird, AJ.
Bro.
Hey, this is.
Did we swap skins?
Wow, we learned a lot about yours, by the way. I mean,
There you have it. That was Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniels talking with Pat McAfee on the Pat McAfee Show. And as I tweeted out with the clip, again, follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck, he better win because the laughter is going to stop if the L start rolling in. Listen, man, that was one of the cringiest sound bites. Now, there's two ways this could go. He could have been trying to be nice to Tua, a guy he's not really sure about and is wants to evaluate before he actually has a definitive, take on him. However, him jumping in on Pat talking about his accuracy and saying, boom, that's just what I was going to say, kind of struck me as odd. And it almost felt like he didn't have an answer. He wasn't going to say that. He didn't know what the hell to say, and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Okay? That, to me, the opening line of, we're going to start by scoring more. Dude, what? They're asking you a real question. I know Pat McAfee has fun, but he's asking you a question. Now, we've seen this from him in other... Now, I'm not... Listen. We've seen this from him in other pressers where he's kind of had a joking personality. He seems like a lighthearted person. Those kind of things... they shouldn't go away, but you do present a different. You are to present a different self as the head coach, the face of the football team. That to me was a very. If I was I'm not a Dolphins fan, and as a Bears fan, I guess I don't have room to talk about embarrassing with what Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are putting forth here, but it's not a great look. Okay? Like I said, if he doesn't win, they're going to turn on him really, really fast. Because that, to me, that right there was a horrible answer. Even if you don't believe in Tua, have an answer at the ready. Have an answer ready to say why you like Tua. Right? Boom, that's what I was going to say. With the guy talking about his accuracy. Did you hear the beginning of the answer? I've been so fortunate. What? Listen. We've joked a lot about the kid coaches saying the darndest things, right? Had Brandon Staley up here. We've had Nick Sirianni on. Not on the show, but, the clip. That'd be great. Nick Sirianni, if you're listening, anytime you want to, come on, bro. We can talk about it. Talk about Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and the connection that you guys are going to build. All that. Anyway, I digress. This is the weirdest one. Because, at least from those, I could pull what they were talking about. What do you mean you've been so fortunate to on how to look at things and see things from the reverse? What does that have to do with the question of what do you like about Tua? It didn't make sense. And then he went back to joking. After giving the answer, he went right back to joking. They just got done with the coach who I guess they felt was too uptight and Brian Flores, and now they went the complete. It's like dating. They went complete oppo and got the guy who's extremely lighthearted and loose with it, and Mike McDaniels. But man, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I'm praying that Buddy got a game plan, because that was not convincing at all. At all. It just wasn't. And as a person who was skeptical of the hire in the first place, I told you last episode, between him and you have Kevin O'Connell up in Minnesota, coming from teams that were whose head coaches were offensive gurus. We've seen this. I've seen this personally. I witnessed it up close. Saw it happen. Saw it fail. Good luck. That's all I'm saying. Good luck. That's all you can say about it. But that clip, man, that is a wild, wild clip. Malik Willis of Liberty University, quarterback, expected to be taken in the first round of this NFL draft, is wowing people with a high Wonderlic score, reportedly of 32. Here's a question, two-parter. Why? Why is he impressing people with it? It should be, I guess not expected, but not as surprising as it sounds it has been for most people. But also, why are they still doing it now? You're saying, what do you mean? They've always done the Wonderlic test. Well, the NFL did away with it by mandate a little while back. But reports are prospects are still doing it just as much as they ever were. And a few have reported not wanting to decline because they didn't want it to look bad. That's bullying. Not to be funny, but that's not a good look. That's an even worse look than taking it and applying it and trying to use it to talk about somebody's intellect as opposed to just their football IQ. So I'm not sure, why it's become such a big topic that he's smart. I mean, that's obviously a pointed statement. I know exactly why. But I also wonder, why are we still doing the test if you're going to not say it? Otherwise, just say you're doing it. That double speak, the double action, the talking out of both sides of your neck stuff is what's really off-putting about it and really makes it seem horrible. It really does. And then just putting that out there because there's a lot that goes into it. And again, it is a high score, so I'm not going to act like it's not an impressive score. And that's why I'm not ragging on it as much, because it is a high score. Like, it ain't like it's a lower high score. They're just trying to prop it up. No, it's a high score. And he went to a smaller school. And he had a lot of coordinators. And his numbers weren't great. So people are surprised. However, we know the connotation, the intonation, the assumption that goes along with black quarterbacks, right? But also, this Wonderlic test thing was supposed to be done away with, but it hasn't gone anywhere. The NFL is NFLing. And then lastly, let's just talk about a couple of prospects that have had some standout moments. The top 40 time, Saquon Thornton of Baylor, wide receiver, 4.28. You also had the top bench press time was by Zion Johnson, guard out of Boston College. He had 32 reps at 225. Highest vertical was Alec Pierce of Cincinnati at 40.5 inches. There are a lot of others over at NFL.com. Great stats, and obviously if you're not watching the Combine, you should. It's a lot of fun. A lot of stuff to see, and just see what the next wave of NFL talent look like before they actually, show you what they look like, because this is all shorts and shirts, but it is cool, and it gives you a good baseline of what you're going to see from them when they actually step on the football field. You haven't watched them in college. So, that being said, that's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website, clockersports.com. Email address, clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, you can follow the show on Facebook and Twitter at 30spod. That's the number 3, zeros, and pod. And be sure to read the stuff. Last word of pro football, Pippin Ain't Easy, Soaring Down South, and Clocker Sports. Until the very next time, you know what it is, man. I'm gone.
Boom. That's what I was just about to say.